Hey guys, welcome to LALoveCreative, and today we're talking about the Canon C70, my first impressions of the camera. It's actually shooting me right now. My pros and cons, what I like about it, and just what I'm having issues with right now. Let's get into it. Now the Canon C70 is an amazing camera. I've been waiting for this camera for a few months. I pre-ordered it. I was looking at my Adorama page like every day trying to figure out if it's ever going to come. And now it's finally here, and I have some things to talk about that are mostly good news. I think for one, the camera really lives up to its hype. It is an amazing image. It is an amazing form factor, even though it's looking kind of awkward. It is really fun to shoot with. And I think as far as image quality, it shoots way above its weight class compared to its price. There's the Sony FX9, the Sony FX6, there's the red Komodo, there's the Panasonic S1H, there's the Blackmagic Ursa. There's so many cameras that are in the $10,000 and under price range. And I will say that the Canon C70 can really compete with all of them, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to dynamic range, I say the Canon C70, the Sonys, the red Komodo, they are all similar when it comes to that. I would say that this camera really does have 15 plus stops of dynamic range. Looking inside the shadows, there's a lot of detail. Highlights are recovering pretty well. I'd say that they're all really good cameras. They're all amazing cameras. You're not gonna be disappointed by any of them. Me personally, I think the Canon C70 is a little bit better when it comes to dynamic range because of the DGO sensor. I can see the shadows being lifted, but then the Sony's better in low light, and the red Komodo has better RAW. So there's so many different things you have to consider when you're looking at dynamic range. At the end of the day, for me, I'm not a big RAW shooter, so this type of dynamic range and this camera is right up my alley. Now, one of the main issues I'm having with the C70, I don't know why, I did hear about this when I was Googling in the beginning of the research for this camera, is memory cards. I am having a problem with getting the right memory card for this camera. I have the Lexar Pros V90 cards, I have the SanDisk V90s, and for some reason, the 128 gigabyte, and for some reason I'm having buffering issues with this camera. I don't know what to do with that. It starts and stops when I'm recording, and I think that has to do with the memory card speed or the write speed. I don't know. My one plan for this would be to upgrade to the Sony Tough SD cards. I've heard they're way more reliable, but they're also more expensive. So I'm gonna research this issue and see what I can do with it and see what I can troubleshoot. Another issue I am having with the camera, which is not a major issue, this is like me nitpicking. It's sometimes touchscreen, sometimes not, which is annoying as like, you'll tap something and it'll touch, and you're like, oh, touch screen. Like when you're scrubbing through clips, it's really cool that they kind of upgraded that from like the Canon C200 and Canon C300 Mark II, is that when you actually play back a clip, you like scrub and you can like touch the screen. You're like, cool. And then you want to delete the clip and it's like joystick, use the joystick. You're like, that's weird. And then when you go in the menu, you're like, okay, joystick. But then you can touch the focus. It's really weird. I wish Canon would just make everything touch. Another thing, I know obviously I bought the camera, so I'm fully aware that it is a Super 35 cinema camera. I've shot with other Super 35 cinema cameras. I know it's the industry standard. However, I'm getting spoiled now. I've shot with the Sony FX9 and I wish it was a full frame camera. But I do plan on getting the Canon speed booster for this camera. I really am just a big fan of full frame, just being full frame with my lenses, like having a 24mm and it be 24mm. And the same thing with all my lenses. I like them to just be what they are and not taking it into account like crop factors and stuff like that. So I do plan on getting the speed booster for this camera because I have been a little annoyed by the Super 35mm sensor. However, it is an amazing sensor. Another problem I have with the Canon C70 that you might want to consider if you're thinking about picking up this camera is the screen. As much as I love the quality of the screen, I think it's awesome indoors. I think I never have issues with it like that. However, if you're outside in direct sunlight, it's not the brightest screen. Something you should consider. I do wish Canon would come out with like a EVF that you can just like put on top of your hot shoe, even if it's really expensive. I think that'd be really cool for this camera because I do find myself putting the camera to my eye and then realizing that there's nothing there because it feels like a DSLR. Aside from that, the screen could be brighter, but it's not a big deal breaker. For the most part, I think the Canon C70 really lives up to its hype. The image quality is amazing. The form factor I thought was gonna be a little weird, but it feels so good in my hands. I'm very, very used to it already, so that could be a pro or a con for you, depending. I think the ergonomics and the functionality of this camera are amazing, and the codecs and 10-bit and the slow motion recording. I plan on doing a lot of videos on the Canon C70, maybe versus different cameras, or shoot a couple projects with it to really give it a good review. If that sounds like something you want to see, make sure to hit the bell and stay notified when we post new videos. Let me know if you have any questions regarding the C70 or videography or photography, and I will see you next time. See you later.